Hi, good evening and welcome. I am Marlon David and I am your host this evening as we feature another week's episode of the Minority Report. This evening we have a very special program lined up as we are going to be going for a 2-hour period with our special one-year program. However, before getting into that and those discussions, let me inform you of the usual protocols. This evening I want to inform us that those of us who are viewing this program can also do so on the Tobago Updates website, the Tobago Updates YouTube channel, and most visited and viewed platform is the Tobago Updates Facebook page. We also are being aired live on M&E TV. Now, for those of you who also want to submit your comments, send us questions, even provide us with issues that you want to have treated with, whether it's of a personal nature or within your community, or even just to generally contribute to the program, you can do so by sending your messages to the WhatsApp contact number 284-6597. That's 284-6597. And we really want to hear from you as we relish your comments and your contributions that continue to encourage and motivate us in carrying out this program and its mandate. This evening, before we get into the meat of the program, we have a few things that we just want to touch on. First of all, I want to make the announcement for those residents of the community of Wim who are listening into the program. The Assemblyman for your district, Assemblyman Kelvin Morris, and Minority Leader is going to be hosting a community engagement forum at the Wim Community Center tomorrow evening. That's Wednesday the 7th from 4:30 p.m. And that forum is going to be in collaboration with various stakeholders. We're seeing that there's going to be a presence from YTEP. Members of the National Commission for Self-Help are going to also be present to offer their services to members of the community. We're also going to have the members and representatives of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service who have also willingly lent their time and their efforts to come and support this initiative along with the Assemblyman. So for those members and residents within the Wim community, share it out. I know you would have been hearing the vehicle miking around today, and it's going to be taking place all day tomorrow. But it's of utmost importance that you come out to this initiative and work along and hear what's taking place and those opportunities that are going to be provided, especially for the young people in the district, in the community, to address some of the pressing needs. So come out and support Assemblyman Kelvin Morris tomorrow as he hosts this very, very necessary initiative in that community. So this evening, I want to repeat, you want to make your comments, you want to share, you can send it to the WhatsApp number 284-6597. That's 284-6597. And I'll encourage you to share the live link for the Tobago Updates Facebook page. We're going to take a short break, and when we get back, we head into our What's Hot corner. We'll be right back.
Level up for Christmas. Level up for Christmas. Level up for Christmas with Amplia. Level up for Christmas. Level up for Christmas. Level up for Christmas with Amplia.
Welcome. It's Christmas time at Limage Parfait Day Spa.
Feliz Navidad. Bienvenido a Limage Parfait Day Spa.
Welcome back this evening to the Minority Report. And so we're going to go right into it. And with me this evening, in the first, as they say, batter up, I have a very distinguished group of gentlemen on the panel. And contributions will be made throughout the entire program this evening, this special report by these gentlemen as we continue to discuss the matters. So let me introduce and welcome to my immediate right. We have the political leader of the People's National Movement, Tobago Island Council, Mr. Ansel Dennis. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, and it's a pleasure to be here again. Good evening to the people of Tobago and all our listeners tuning in from other parts of the country and the world.
Nicely, and we had quite a bit of a program last week, and we saw it enticed Mr. Dennis to be back with us this week, and we know it's going to only get better. To his immediate right, yet again another very, very strong pillar within the organization. We have our new chairman, and I'm saying new still because this is only the second time that we have you on the program, sir. Yes. We have our chairman, Mr. Larry Paul. Welcome to the program this evening, sir.
Good evening, Marilyn, and of course, it's a pleasure to be here once again, and good evening to your viewers, and of course, those tuning from wherever they are. Good evening to Tobago. You know, this program seems to be one of the most viewed program around, you know. So you're doing good. So
Thank you very much, and that's a very good compliment coming from you.
Yes, yes.
And to the immediate right of the chairman, we have who I think many would now deem a member of the Minority Council. Definitely a gentleman that wears several hats, and it's indeed a pleasure to always have him here in his capacity tonight in this segment as the PRO of the People's National Movement Tobago Island Council, Senator Lawrence Hislop. Good evening, sir.
Thank you, Marilyn. Good evening, gentlemen, and good evening, viewers, Tobago, Trinidad, and the world. Good to be here as always.
What I like is how each of you said good evening to the world.
Yeah.
Because people from all over the world literally log in and tune into the program. So what we say here has global impact. We want to go right into this evening. We want to discuss, first of all, I know that victory and celebrations and success is in the air. The People's National Movement just concluded their internal election process. And there is definitely what I would call a new executive with a fresh mandate given by the people. And so I want us to just delve into that a bit to discuss the process, to discuss a bit of what it means now to the Tobago Island Council in terms of seeing this level of democracy take place consistently over years, and there has never been a putting off and no authoritarian type behavior. So I'm going to invite the chairman to weigh in first on this part of the discussions.
Yes. So thank you very much, Marilyn, and of course, to begin, I really want to congratulate the new political leader return, of course, with a massive victory, and the team, because, you know, the internal election means quite a lot to the party. Democracy is alive. So it doesn't matter where you are in a party, you can aim. The party has certain stratas that you can go to the highest level. Because I can use my own example. You know, I started in a party group in Blackrock. I went through the different levels of the constituency and so on. And now I'm the chairman. So that democracy is alive in the People's National Movement. And I really want to congratulate the team to how they have done it in order. So you saw the mobilization of the party, people going out and the campaigning and so on, because this team is going to take the party into the future. You saw the transitioning of some young people, a good mix, too, because you see, the party, when it transformed, it was into governance, and governance is important in the country. So first, you want to congratulate them, all of them, for a job well done, and especially Dr. Rowley, under severe pressure. But you know, when you're under pressure, the best comes out. and you saw the best. But not only that, the percentage of votes that he got overwhelmingly tells us something about the People's National Movement and the strength of the man. If I could say one more thing, one thing that I will mark on in my book in history is that in a time when the country needed someone of strength most, during the period of COVID, Dr. Rowley stood out. If you don't remember anything else about him, that period where he guided his nation through COVID is something that all of us must remember.
Well said, and I think the entire world echoed that sentiment, considering the awards and accolades that he would have gained.
Yes.
The political leader, I know that as the chairman would have indicated, this process is an ongoing and it's continuous in terms of the democracy. But how does this signal and what does this say about the strength and the stability of the People's National Movement?
Well, the party was established in January of 1956. In Tobago, the Tobago Council was established in 1998. It signals that the PNM continues to be a democratic, disciplined, structured, and organized political party. And I'm smiling because we have to do the comparisons, and now is a good time for us to do the comparison. we saw where the PDP has imploded. And when you compare that to the business of the PNM, yes, we have our differences. Yes, we have arguments. At one point in time, Mr. Patrick Manning, the late great Patrick Manning, and Dr. Rowley did not agree on certain things. And Dr. Rowley ended up out of the cabinet. We had our own situation in Tobago recently as well. But nobody ever crossed the floor and went independent and joined another political party. Nobody took their symbol or their color or anything like that. We still remained the PNM. We still remained wearing red. Our symbol is still the Balize. And we continue to guarantee something that no other political party could guarantee, and that is stability. We also guarantee service, and again we could do the comparisons. PNM assemblymen in the past were accused of being overly generous as it relates to assisting people with food cards, etc. One assemblyman was accused of having 400 food cards in his back pocket, and we knew that was not the situation, and we knew that is not what transpired. As a chief secretary, I think most Tobagonians will conclude that I was very much available and accessible to the people of Tobago, not only in my electoral district, but Tobago. Compare that to what is happening now, where PDP assemblymen who are trying to call themselves now independent as of yesterday or day before are saying to the people of Tobago, ease me up. The PNM, we guarantee service to the people of Tobago, and we also guarantee delivery as an organization, and there is none to compare.
Well said.
I'm wondering if it's a full stop or a comma.
That's a full stop.
None to compare.
And Senator Hislop and PRO and member of the panel continuously, the Tobago Island Council of the PNM is critical in the general process, because I know that we would have participated as well in the national process. We also have our own process here, and to me that speaks heavily to the autonomous type situation that was created, even as the political leader would have indicated when the Tobago Council was formed. How do you view that role and the autonomous setting of the Tobago Council in relation to working together and partnering with the National Party, even whether in government as well? How do you see that meshing?
But it gives the Island Council a critical role, because the automatic thing for the Island Council is that whoever the political leader is on the Island Council is a deputy political leader of the National Party. So that speaks to Tobago having a seat at the highest level in the party, and having and not just a seat but a voice. And so the PNM has we've charted the course as to what autonomy looks like between Trinidad and Tobago, and if this is a classic example of how you can be autonomous and still work together, and if we could pattern just the ideology that the PNM has in terms of the Island Council being autonomous and still being part of a national construct, then if you could just pattern that into the national scheme of things, you could see how beneficial that relationship will be, not only to Tobago or not only to Trinidad, but to Tobago, because the Island Council in the construct of the National Party is seen as an equal partner, because we have two bites of the cherry in terms of the membership being able to vote, and also in terms of a structure of being able to get to the highest level. Because let's say, for instance, the Island Council was not autonomous. It would be almost, well, I shouldn't say almost difficult. It would be very difficult for a member from Tobago to want to attain to the highest positions in the party. Now this gives a Tobagonian direct access to the highest levels of the party. So it says that we are on equal footing, and in the scheme of governance as well. We saw over the years how a Tobago House of Assembly led by a PNM administration and a government in Trinidad led by PNM worked together hand in hand, that brought significant resources to Tobago. And so it is from that kind of foundation that we stand. And when you talk about, the chairman spoke about the legacy, 66 years, the reason why the party still stands after 66 years is because the party has a structure. The party is structured. So it's not just somebody get up in the morning and say, I am owner and founder. And wherever I say goes. You listen, as political leader, Dr. Rowley still has to account for his stewardship to the general membership of the party. And the general membership can call him to board.
And face the polls.
That's right. And so the PNM shows that we are a cut above the rest, head and shoulders above the rest. Full stop.
Thank you.
You know, if we just add, Marlon, just to add to Senator, what is important, when the PNM started in 56, was the PNM. And some 14 plus elections after, we are still the PNM. And if you look at the list of names, over 60 odd names have changed, and we are still the PNM. That says something.
And even when we lose, we are still.
Exactly.
I'll ask the director to just pull up so that all viewers can see the composition of the new executive. So as we see, we coming in new to the fray, we have a new chairman,
Yes.
Minister Stuart Young replacing Mr. Imber. We also see a new vice chairman as well. Well, we always had Minister Camille Robinson Regis, very, very dynamic woman. Minister Foster Cummings continuing to work hard. We have a new Assistant General Secretary, Patricia Alexis. Congratulations as well. A new Treasurer, Minister Hussein. We see a shift with Laurel Lizama leasing from the position of PRO, and she's now the Education Officer, being replaced as well by Minister Faris Al-Rawi. Very eloquent. He's returning as PR. Jennifer Baptiste Primus.
He was PRO during a different...
a different dispensation. Jennifer Baptiste Primus as the Labor Relations Officer. Indar Parasram returning as the Elections Officer. Terence B. Pratt, newly minted Field Officer. Maxine Richards as well, coming in. I think she would have been acting in the position instead of Miss Bodden. We see Jenny Scott, newly minted Youth Officer as well. Kwesi Robinson, who everybody saw and felt during this campaign, and again Irene Hines, one of the pioneers and stalwarts, are returning as the operations officer. So once again, we want to say congratulations to the new national executive led by Dr. the Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, taking the PNM forward. And gentlemen, coming out of that discussion, I want us to just go to a very short break once again. And when we come back, we're going to be getting into some meaty discussions this evening. So stay locked on Stay logged on and share the live. We'll be right back.
Spread Christmas joy and cheer with a loan from Lambo Credit Union this year. Get 100% financing for shopping, home renovations, furniture and appliances, debt consolidation and much more. Did we mention no payments until the end of January 2023? Get the most flexible repayment periods and the best interest rates around. Call 639-5060 to book your appointment today. Or visit us on Facebook or Instagram. Wishing you a happy holiday from Lambo Credit Union. And remember, we are always here for you.
The best place to stay in Tobago is at Thorns Place, with rates starting as low as 200 TT. Call or WhatsApp 745-7306 or 682-8676. We are located uptown Scarborough, 5 minutes away from the port. Remember, at Thorns Place, our aim is to make your stay safe and affordable.
Our national borders, our first step to security, but a possible access point for guns, drugs, crime. If it does not look right, do the right thing. Call Crime Stoppers anonymously. 800-8477. Report possible border crime.
And we're back this evening. So we're going to go right into some discussions yet again that I think are very necessary to the general public. Now, we've been hearing a narrative trying to be created over the last couple months, I think even for the entire year that we've seen, where persons are putting it out into the public domain that for 21 years, the People's National Movement led administration in Tobago, the Tobago House of Assembly, has done nothing, and secondly has created 21 years of mess. Now, I don't know how many right-thinking Tobagonians and any citizen of this country could listen to something so erroneous and actually believe it and support it. But again, as in PNM manner, we don't fight and we don't quarrel. What we will do is spend a little time to now examine this narrative and shed some light on it. And I think with the gentlemen I have here at the table, a number of years experience, not just in terms of life, but in terms of institutional knowledge of the party and the party's existence and what we would have been able to achieve right here in Tobago. So I'm going to go straight to you, political leader, to kick us off with this narrative debunking.
Yeah, so I heard the Chief Secretary, Farley Augustine, this morning, in his usual dishonest and disingenuous style, talking about they having 21 years of mess to clean up. Now, of course, before the campaign, the talk was that PNM did nothing for 21 years. So give us a chance. We could go in and we could fix things and do it better. After 1 year of abject failure, the excuse now is that you met 21 years of mess and you cannot clean it up in 1 year. I will simply say to the people of Tobago that that is stupid talk. And of course, it's being parroted by other members of this administration, whether they be PDP. I will call them defectors and Nowarians. The facts are, and I will not even go back to 21 years ago, because that is there for all to see. Anybody in any community can see how their respective community transformed. I can speak for Buku. At one point in time, Buku was without any major facilities. Buku now has a primary school, a preschool, a community center, a Buku integrated facility, a boardwalk, some of the best infrastructure on the island, a playing field, tennis court. When you go across to Mount Pleasant, lighted playing field and pavilion, Lowlands Community Facility, Mount Pleasant Community Center as well. And the same can be said about every single community across Tobago, right? Tobago at this point in time, when compared to Trinidad and even other parts of the region, when you compare those areas and those jurisdictions as it relates to the number of community facilities per capita, Tobago is far ahead. Some people will even suggest that we have more facilities, sporting facilities, community facilities, health facilities than we are able to utilize. And that is the reality. And that was brought to you in whole, mostly, by Orville London, the first PNM Chief Secretary here in Tobago. So let's look at recent developments, because we spoke about the fact that the PNM is a national party. And being a national party, that comes with the ability to have a certain level of coordination, cooperation, and consistent communication between central government, if the PNM is in government there, and the Tobago House of Assembly. And let's talk about 1 year, because the topic tonight is a year of distress. The PNM, for our last year or two in office, led the island through, and the country by extension, through a difficult period of pandemic. If there was ever a chance for chaos to happen in Tobago and confusion and bacchanal, it was during that pandemic, where resources were scarce, healthcare workers were under pressure, public servants were under pressure, and all of that. And guess what? During that period, and I want the PDP supporters and those who support the Spartans, the Jellyfish, the Independents, and whatever factions they have, I want them to look back at that period honestly. Compare that period of general stable leadership to what we have had over the last year. During that pandemic period, the PNM administration was able to keep businesses afloat. We spent millions of dollars in grants. The same public servants that the PDP, I keep saying PDP, I forgot they resigned.
Yeah, I was just going to remind
the
you
same
of that.
public servants that they said that they are saying now are inefficient and lazy and wicked and vindictive, and even calling them PNM, those same public servants, we got those same public servants to process millions of dollars in grants to give support to businesses, to give support to individuals in need of support, rental assistance, food cards. As a matter of fact, we took policy decisions that we got criticized for to decentralize the food card arrangements, seeking the assistance of the various area representatives in distributing food cards. And any honest Tobagonian will tell you that during that period, the island was well managed. In terms of collaboration with the central government, during that same pandemic period, the inter-island ferry services, the challenges were resolved once and for all with the procurement of 2 fast ferries by this government. We got a new hospital in Roxborough. We got a fire station in Roxborough, a police station in Roxborough. I find I say in Roxborough a lot. An administration complex in Roxborough, right? Even during that period, when we saw that and you all forgive me, when we saw that the construction sector and generally the economy of Tobago was severely depressed as a result of the pandemic, we engaged in a program where we spent close to $200-300 million engaging local contractors, not Trinidadian, local contractors who would have spent, who this administration spent, the previous administration spent a number of years building up their capacity. The same individuals who built roads in Tobago for years, who engaged, some big, some medium, some even small, treating with retaining walls, much needed in certain areas to protect public infrastructure and in some cases private homes. Drains in certain areas that suffered serious drainage challenges. We spent that money and we were able to achieve several objectives. One, employment was created for hundreds of Tobagonians for a prolonged period during a pandemic, who otherwise would have been home with nothing to do and depending on the THA for food cards and other kinds of support. We also were able to resolve significant infrastructural challenges that came about as a result of bad weather. The same kind of bad weather we just experienced that caused a lot of landslides, that caused bad rock to erupt, I would say, right? And all those kinds of other issues. We had that kind of period when we had Tropical Storm Karen and then following that some other periods of bad weather. And we spent Tobago people's money in Tobago on giving it to Tobago people contractors to employ Tobago Tobago people during a pandemic. And of course that allowed the economy of Tobago to keep turning during a difficult period. So we did significantly well as an administration over the last 21 years that we were in office. And if we were to focus even on the last term or the last 2 years, we delivered continually to the people of Tobago, especially during challenging periods. There was no chaos, no kankatang, no victimization. Only talk, they like to talk about victimization. They can produce no evidence of such. And we will produce some evidence of PDP victimization this evening. So when you compare the year of distress under Farley, Augustine and Friends to the PNM's track record, we have demonstrated that we have delivered to the people of Tobago, contrary to the foolish talk about 21 years of mess to clean. That is an excuse, and I want to see how long they will use that excuse for.
I want to raise, and I want Senator Hislop, I want you to weigh in on this. Political leaders spoke heavily to the development of communities and infrastructure and so on. Something that I think many persons underestimate and do not bring into view is the development in terms of the human capacity that we've seen on the island. And as the political leader would have mentioned, we don't even have to go back 21 years. But if we do, I know that is something that you are very passionate about. You would have identified it on other platforms in terms of our human capacity development, the education level and so on. Yeah. I want you to speak to that a bit, because we want to remind Tobago that and debunk this whole nonsense that it was 21 years of mess and 21 years of nothing being done. So weigh in on this for me.
You see, the political leader was spot on as usual, and when it comes to achievements, he could have done the whole segment because we need wealth and knowledge. And if we let's just take the education sector by itself. As I said, I remember the days when if you didn't pass common entrance, you had to go school leaving class, and that was it for you on higher education. Because you didn't have the requisite space in the high school system in Tobago at one point in time to place every child who came out of primary school. I want to backtrack a little bit. Are we talking about the first, in some instances, first year? One of the significant projects that under Orville London administration in his first year did was the construction of a new primary school in Mason Hall. The school was run down for a number of years, and that was one of the major projects in Mr. London's first year that was done. It was started in the first year. It wasn't completed in the first year, but it was started in the first year. And this is and he had come in on the back of 21 years of our previous administration, or 20 years of our previous administration. So when people talking about well, 20 years you did nothing, and we struggling. So because you did nothing, we can't. So just use Mr. London's example. 20 years he came in on the back of and was able to start a major project within that year. Now, when we talk about the space in the high schools, you saw the construction of Mason Hall, Goodwood, Speyside, right?
Yeah.
Which created an avenue for all of our children now, and then the spaces at the Harmon School as well that were taken, and Light and Life as well, that the THA paid for, because these are private institutions that the THA paid for, so that our children can access secondary education. And then when we move the level now to tertiary, that's and some of the same people who are making that argument benefited from free tertiary education.
Correct.
The Chief Secretary himself benefited from GATE. And so when you talk about PNM doing nothing, look at your own life and see where you would have benefited. I always, one of the passions I have is the health sector, in terms of our young people getting the opportunity to become doctors and nurses. It was a direct policy decision by the PNM to create space so that the young boy from Bishops and Signal Hill and Scarborough and whatever high school you came from had the opportunity as a Tobagonian to become a doctor, because you went to casualty. Because I'm of a certain age group, so I remember going up the fort. I remember going up the fort, and the doctors up there, you could barely understand what they were saying. We had no, listen, we were helped by the Nigerians and the Pakistanis, and some of them have stayed in Tobago and have made Tobago their home and have helped build the health sector in Tobago. But now, when you go up to the Scarborough Hospital at Signal Hill, the man from Blackrock, the young lady from Bethel, the young doctor from Mason Hall, the radiologist, people you can relate to. And I don't want to call names, and I wouldn't do that. But there are people who we know personally who benefited from direct PNM policy decisions and have gone on not only for their lives to be better, but for their families to be better. And we need to stop the old talk that PNM did nothing. That statement is dishonest, disingenuous, and downright false.
And it's also an insult to the intelligence of Tobagonians. Because let's look at it this way. In 2001, Mr. London became Chief Secretary. He ran the island for 4 years. 2005, he sought a new mandate. The people of Tobago said, based on your performance for that 4 years, we're satisfied. So we're giving you another 4 years.
That's right.
2009, again he came back. I want a fresh mandate. I feel that I did enough on this island. The people of Tobago said, no problem, take 4 more years. 2013, same thing. People of Tobago, I am Mr. London, this is my team, you have done X, Y, Z for Tobago. Look it, all you could see it, all you could feel it for yourself. I want another 4 years. The people of Tobago said overwhelmingly, 12-0. Take another 4 years. Then of course it was another 4 years on the part by Mr. Charles and the last part by yours truly. So it is ridiculous to suggest that the people of Tobago kept electing an administration that did nothing for them. So it's total nonsense. Right? The other thing, and Mr. Hislop went into it, Tobagonians, as a result of PNM policy, got a second bite of the cherry, 2 bites of the cherry as it relates to education opportunities. Because, and I'll just say this quietly, people in Trinidad do like to hear it. Tobagonians could have benefited from GATE and even approach the assembly afterwards to get financial assistance in pursuit of their education. And it's fair, because the average Tobagonian has to travel to Trinidad in most cases, pay room, pay board, pay transportation between the air and sea bridge in order to facilitate their studies. And it's not only in terms of that kind of education. I remember when I got into politics in 2013 was my first term. I was in the division of community development and culture at the time.
Yes.
And we were undertaking a program called the Vocational Skills Training Program.
Yes. Correct.
Training hundreds. At one point in time, over 1,000 people graduated. They were provided training in various areas, various skill sets, from fashion designing to jewelry making to cooking, baking, and all these kinds of things. And a number of those persons, lots of them, were able to leave that program, approach BDU, another P&M policy, the business development unit, approach BDU, get a grant, start a business, and are now benefiting with those businesses through the tourism sector. Of course, at this point in time, we're benefiting mostly from the domestic tourism. And those people have the gall to sit there and say that the P&M did nothing for Tobago. Absolutely ridiculous. So they could look for all the excuses they want. They have created more mess in 1 year than the P&M created in allegedly created in 21 years.
And Mr. Paul, I know you want to weigh in. I just want to point out something, and it's a point and a question. I don't know if you all remember when young people getting their bachelors was few and far between in Tobago.
Yeah, that's right.
When someone got their bachelors in a community, it was celebrated like what we saw recently with Marcel in Trinidad, and the whole BTAM came out. It was a celebration. Now, so many young people have their bachelors in the community. It's just, so and so son graduated. It's a frequent thing. It's something, it has now become normalized in Tobago.
But the point is, is that it's a P&M policy from Dr. Williams, education. That was the main policy. It's from nursery to tertiary. What about the 12 early childhood centers were built in Tobago? What about the primary schools, St. Andrews, RC, Methodist? Then you add to the secondary, all those. And that alone would have helped the unemployment level, Unemployment moved from 12.8% in 2021 to less than 5% in 2022. And the labor force rose to 30%. So I'm saying, while those going on, people are getting employment. I can't say the same for now.
Of course.
Well, we're going to get into that.
And let me just have quickly, because somebody just messaged me to tell me, talk about agriculture. What we have done for the agriculture sector in Tobago, especially over that short period of time, because we determined, especially during the pandemic period, that we had to pay some urgent attention and utilize more resources in the agriculture sector. So people would have seen me, visiting farms, talking to farmers, and that was deliberate, to get an understanding as to where this sector was at the point in time. And through those consultations, we engaged in a number of programs. We made a decision that the 3 companies in that sector would be subsumed into one company called TATCO. And immediately, farmers began seeing results. One farmer was on Channel 5 recently boasting about the exploits of that company, right? Taking their goods, right? Putting money into their pocket, providing them with training and other marketing opportunities and that kind of stuff. PDP came in, they're looking to mash that up. We started a farmland development program. When I went out there and I saw what was happening in this sector, a number of talented farmers doing their thing, and all they need is a little bit more space to expand. We decided, look, we'll find $80 million, develop Lamy Road in Argyle, develop some land up Belmont Road, and a little piece down in Friendship to do agriculture. We started it. We approved the program. We distributed the land to the farmers through letters of comfort, and all of them were existing farmers. They came in and stopped the program, telling the farmers, when the farmers go in to follow up, asking the secretary, well, what is happening to the program? We got the land, no development is done, we can't do anything with the land. They're telling the farmers they have no money. So you don't have $80 million to continue a program that was put on a plate.
Yeah.
Put on a plate and say, hey, look, run with it by the PNM. You do have $80 million to continue that, but you have $300 million to send to Trinidad to do 4 roads that were totally unnecessary.
That's right.
Right? The road that was built for 19 million in Dutch Fort, was that really necessary? That money could have been used to develop at least one of those locations. So let's say they decided to do Lamy Road with that money. You know what that would have done? It would have created opportunities for 50 or so young men from that area who are farmers to expand the production, produce more, feed Tobago, feed Trinidad, and make room for themselves. They prefer to take it, give a contractor a project to do in 3 days, and we'll get to that later when we're talking about those other issues. They prefer to take it and spend it in that way, squandering the money and telling farmers they do have money to do important things, right? So we did a lot in the agriculture sector. We expanded the BDU grants to include more farming projects, and a number of persons benefited from that. We established TADCO and we were organizing it in a particular way. We were doing a factory in the Goldsboro area that was going to take care of the processing aspects of it.
Yes.
That development that we were doing in Belmont Road would have included a centralized processing area for the broiler farmers. So instead of a situation where you have the average farmer processing maybe 100, 200 birds per day, we were going to have a situation where we could process significantly more than that through that centralized arrangement. They came in. TADCO arrangements changed. They're taking goods from Trinidad farmers now, have some arrangement with a Trinidad company called Novo. Here they have another arrangement with Arawak, with some contract farming for chicken, which I'm sure the minority leader and the councillor will look into that and
exactly.
Get, because Tobagonians don't know about it. That is a secret. Just like the roads, the 300 million in roads was a secret. This Novo and Arawak arrangement in the agriculture sector is a secret. Nobody knows how much money is spent, what is the contractual arrangements with this company, how is it going to benefit Tobago. Nobody knows. Only when the minority leader asks questions, that is when Tobago people can get answers.
Yes.
Right? So we did a lot for the agriculture sector. We left several programs on a platter for them to continue. They chose to throw away the programs and divert the money to other less important things for their own personal benefit, I might add.
When I hear, I mean, the 3 gentlemen, when I listen to what you all have been saying, there are 3 things that come to mind. The first thing is this: governance is a continuum.
Yes.
And we've heard it echoed here several times on the program, because it's about never shutting down. It's about continuation and so on.
Correct.
The second thing that came to mind is that you could please some of the people some of the time, but you could never please all of the people all of the time. And the third thing that came to mind, it's an old saying that I grew up hearing: it has been good house.
Bad house
is calling. And I'm certain many persons right now are saying that, because having listened to what has been presented here this evening, and this is just a tip of the iceberg.
We ain't talk about accomplishments yet.
Exactly.
We ain't talk, even if we talk tourism, that program that they are treating with now, with the customer service training program, they didn't start that.
We ain't touch land acquisition.
PNM policy. PNM policy again. Because we looked at the tourism sector and we decided that one of Tobago's biggest problems is our customer service. And I'm sure the people at Tobago heard me talk about this island-wide training program, customer service training program, that they are now engaging in, right? Owning it as if it's their program. Give the PNM the credit and say, well, this is something we are continuing from the previous administration. But you could say all we leave is mess. You ain't talking about the programs we left. Some you discarded, some you chose to pursue.
Some that you continued.
Mr. Paul, you were weighing in on something.
No, because I'm just adding to what the political leader was saying. Because land acquisition was also one of the policies of this of this government. Yeah, to ensure we have a heritage.
Yes.
You know, what about the Pigeon Point? Corland Estate is a major one. I remember that story, Corland Estate.
Yeah.
Mr. Carter said it several times. He was on his way to the airport. Somebody called him and said, listen, I seen Corland Estate up for sale. We're going to lose that heritage.
That's right.
He called the Minister of Finance because of the relationship that same on the term we have to see how we can get that for Tobago. How we can boast of a Corland Estate. We can have a housing project. We can inherit those lands. Because the lands are Chauvin, the lands are Delphi. What I'm saying.
But they have come into office with things on a platter.
Yes.
That's right.
And if they do, instead of making bacchanal, just continue the work.
Continue, exactly.
Just continue the work, but you're it's in your DNA for confusion. That's in your, because that's how you campaign.
But when you come from a history of 40-something political parties in the political cemetery, then it becomes part of your culture.
Well, there's one thing that's always said, that the PNM make governance look easy.
And Senator, you said something there that is very, very important. And now that we see this group of defectors as titled by DPL, they're in office, and now what we're hearing is a lot of excuses.
Yes.
And
yes.
I heard the Chief Secretary say in one of his press conferences that the PNM is very good at planning, but they are very good at execution. And what he didn't realize is that planning for development takes time.
No, but planning for development is supposed to take place when you are in opposition. You don't come into governance and start the plan. When the time you spend in the minority looking for nothing, you should have spent that time really planning so that when you get into office, it's time to work.
Well,
that's what you do.
Well, they were planning, but it's planning what?
Planning what?
Because they were planning to overthrow you. and when they didn't succeed with that, they now resigned from the field. No, but it's the truth.
Well, I don't think anybody could dispute that, because that was the first course of action we saw take place. But I mean, it's really been visible now that the PNM, though many persons, and that's why I gave these three quotes, would have said that PNM does take too long. But PNM takes a while because PNM does it the correct way. Not what we've seen where public officials saying that they don't care about the process and the law.
No, yes.
Because their intention is to get the job done, which, by the way, is still not yet done. But we're going to get into that later in the program as well.
You see, I just want to make a quick point. You see, people keep saying we can't compare 1 to 21, right? And that may be fair, but the reality is, don't take Bullifi. Apt, eh? Very apt. Don't take Bullifi to go and look for things in the night. Where you can see in the day. So what we've seen is how you are going. This is how you started it. And if you started, this is not 6 months, this is 1 year. And you said you had all the answers. And all I ask people, if with all the mistakes that are being made now, and all the corruption, and if that was a PNM administration, would you have been so quiet? The same people who are saying we need to be quiet. If the PNM had built a stage in the sea, would you have been quiet? You wouldn't have been quiet. You would have been saying it's corruption and all, breaking the law.
Exactly.
If we had built this, if we had done a road for 19 million, where the award and
3 days.
Within 3 days, if we had done that, the same man who presides over the division that was responsible for that would have been one of the same people making noise. The same chief secretary would have stood up in James Park and made noise and said the PNM doing things incorrectly and it's corruption. And so when we say it now, there's a problem. And I don't understand, then we've been, as a population, we've been very disingenuous.
No, Marilyn, I don't want people to feel that we are gloating in the demise of the other side. Because we in the PLO come from a place where we pray for those in authority so there be peace in the land.
Yeah.
But in doing so, we have to also hold them accountable. Because it's about governance, you know.
Very
And if the
important.
country goes down, we go down as well.
Exactly.
So I want to put that straight. But of course, you must hold them accountable. And you must talk about their misdeeds, which is what we are doing.
Thanks a lot for that very salient
Definitely.
point, Mr. Chairman. Folks, you're viewing the Minority Report. We have in studio thus far the political leader, Mr. Ansel Dennis, the chairman of the party, Mr. Larry Paul, and the PRO, Senator Lawrence Sislop. We're going to take a short break as the discussions continue to heat up. Let's continue to share the live, have more persons join in so that Tobago can be edified. When we get back, we're going to shift gears and take the discussion a little further. So stay logged on, stay locked on, and we'll be right back.
This is how it's gonna go. They better look up and look, 'cause this is your show. And everybody's gonna know. Say it to them once again. They better look up and look. This is your show. And everybody's gonna know. That's how it's gonna go. They better look up below, 'cause this is your show.
You can now get whatever you need whenever you need it anywhere in Tobago with Tapago. Your meals, medication, groceries, and shopping all delivered directly to you. No more hassle, no more stress. Get the Tapago app today on Google Play or Apple App Store.
That's TAPPOGO, and let us deliver to you.
Check our website at www.tapogo.app or call the experts at 494-TOGO and 484-4746. Tapago. Relax. We will get it to you. Tapago's at your service.
Mamai Lakai Home Services. We specialize in cleaning of carpets and rugs, mattresses, living room and dining room sets, vehicle detailing, cleaning and sanitizing of homes and commercial spaces. We also do landscaping and tree cutting, pressure and power washing, floor care, fumigating and air purifying. You can also call us for professional painting services, babysitting and adult sitting. Call us now 333-4430 at Mamai Lakai Home Services. We take cleaning to another level.
Excel Spa by Haley, where our highly trained staff are ready to deliver the top-class services in facial massages, waxing, nail enhancement and body treatment. We are ideally located at Coco Avenue, Switzerland, Tobago. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, TripAdvisor, or you can call us on 730-0149. Excel Spa by Haley. Relax, renew, and rejuvenate.
Good morning, good morning, put a smile on your
Level up for Christmas. Level up for Christmas. Level up for Christmas with Amplia. Level up for Christmas. Level up for Christmas. Level up for Christmas with Amplia.
Yes, folks, and we are back on the Minority Report this evening, and we, as I indicated earlier, we're going to be shifting gears. We have a slight change in our batting lineup, where we have now brought in another set of experienced batsmen into the lineup. We know that the run rate has been accelerating over the last hour. This evening, it's a pleasure indeed to welcome to the panel the minority leader himself, Assemblyman Kelvon Morris. Raring to go. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Marlon. Good evening to my political leader. And good evening to all our listeners.
Very well. And joining him on the other end, we have, now I have to say, the very experienced minority councillor, Mrs. Petal Daniel Benoit. Welcome, Petal.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Good evening to the political leader, the minority leader, you, Marlon, and all of our viewing and listening audience.
Nice. So guys, you're joining in, and I mean, you've been listening and pretty much enjoying the program this evening as our 200 plus online viewers thus far on the Facebook Live. And I want to say thank you, viewers, for making this program a success, definitely. You've been very supportive, and we only see ourselves being able to continue growing with your support and your encouragement. So guys, you've been listening in, and we are the political leader doing quite an extensive job, even though not scratching the surface with some of what we've seen happening. But this evening's program is entitled The Year of Distress. and I don't know if we're going to take a sombering mood, but I know we're going to take an aggressive mood. We've seen an administration, I was tempted to say PDP, but I have to adopt the new terminology. We've seen the defector administration throughout this 1 year period literally treat the Tobagonians with disrespect, insults, as you would treat someone who is a stranger, broken promises, all sorts of things. And so this evening, to begin this segment of the Year of Distress, we're going to reflect a bit on the words of the now Chief Secretary and go right into the words of his Deputy Chief Secretary, because the Bible says the anointing runs from the head and flows down. So we're going to start from who they deem as their head, and let's take it away. So I'll ask the director to cue that up for me this evening.
Lie number one they have told you is that you will lose services when you vote for the PDP. You have no service to lose when you vote for the PDP. In fact, the PDP is about providing service more than anybody else, to the point that they also accuses us of wanting to spend out money on you, give away money to you, promoting laziness. They try to accuse us of that. But you will not lose any services. You will not lose your jobs. You will not lose your food cards. Nobody coming to take back a hamper from you that they give you. Nobody coming to take away a contract that you're already doing. Because we have been saying from this platform, this is about Tobago. And we understand that some of you will break, stick in your ears and still vote for them. But at the end of the day, when we win, we take off this black, green, and white and put on our Tobagonian robes, because that is most critical. So you have no service to lose.
We want to ensure that every time you have a question, you know that you can go to our website that is run by the Tobago House of Assembly and find the information about that particular thing. We want you to know that if any contract for how much millions of dollars give away, you should be able to pull up that website and say, here what? These were the 10 companies that vie for that contract. This is the company that got the contract, and this is why this company got the contract. We shouldn't have to be telling you, it is not your business, but this is public, this is private business, and it is not your, no. The Progressive Democratic Patriots is insisting that when, on your behalf, we spend your money, you know exactly what is going on. We had to fix this.
Well, folks, you heard it live here on the Minority Report. And I don't know which one of the batsmen really want to start swinging at this because we heard the Chief Secretary make several promises that from the get-go, he started eating away at it, and then we have now his Deputy Chief Secretary, the anointing oil running down, making again a number of promises and declarations. But I know we're going to treat with that as we go on. So Minority Leader, I want to, now that seeing that you are the fresh batsman on the pitch.
Well, what as a former cricketer, what I know, when you have a batsman already in form, all you do is play defensive and take a single and hand it over. So I'm going to deflect to my political.
Work it around.
Yes.
So, gentlemen, we saw after this on the 21st of January, we saw it start to take place.
Well, the thing that stood out for me there is the part about Tobago Road. Because the Chief Secretary, neither the members of his administration have put on any Tobago robe. They have put on robes from San Fernando, Pinal, Rio Claro, Barrackpore, and those areas. They have not put on any Tobago robes. Of course, recently he put on the suit Watson Duke bought for him. But the reality is that these individuals were prepared to promise their way into office. They were prepared to lie their way into office. We saw Zipline along with several other accusations, right? And they made all kinds of promises. The website faith promise that people could go and pull up details of contracts. They're not even telling us about the contracts. You know how he doesn't know about the contracts? When the Minority Leader go in the house and ask, or when somebody, some whistleblower,
yes,
right, or some source leak a document to us, and then when we put it into the public domain, then they're coming to lie to us again to tell us about processes with 40 contractors, right, that they selected from to do roads in Tobago. So there's no Tobago roads. At every opportunity, they have sold out the people of Tobago, right? This Chief Secretary, before he got into office, was making several trips to Trinidad, as said by his political leader, right? And during the course of those trips, he has, well, I don't even know if to say purchased or gifted several robes, but none of them are Tobago robes.
Yeah, and the thing is, I want to add, I'm glad we are on the letter D and distress. I want to add a couple more Ds. Deception, disingenuous, deceitful, and dishonest. And we have seen this deception from then to now, where they say one thing and then turn around and do another thing. You saw the Chief Secretary there promising persons that they would not lose their jobs. They would treat everybody as Tobagonians. However, one of his first comments was that persons were political hires, and then went on a mission of putting Tobagonians on the breadline. And maybe what we are seeing here today is as a result of the tears and the pain and the suffering of some of these persons who now cannot pay their rent. Some of them have children away. They are unable to maintain their school fee. Some of them have loans. They have lost their vehicle. And this is because of the pain and the distress that this administration would have brought upon Tobagonians after promising them that they will not lose their jobs.
Now, one of the things I want to, and again, we're looking at the year in distress, and this is a countdown. And so two critical things took place in January, as would have been indicated in the first instance, as you guys spoke. The 21st of January, we had the first batch of workers being sent home. And while the island was still recovering from the utter shock of that, we saw on the 24th, an interview shortly after sending home a group of workers. And the Chief Secretary now clearly made his intentions known to the island of what it is, how he's going to be moving forward. I'll ask the director to play that clip for us.
There's a situation where a number of persons were sent home from the Division of Infrastructure. Any word on that? About 13 persons will be affected.
Right. So that particular unit was called Monitoring and Evaluation Unit, and that unit basically comprised what is known in the industry as political hires. Here we had a monitoring and evaluation unit that was meant to monitor and evaluate the projects that were done by engineers, but the monitoring and evaluation unit did not comprise of engineers. How does a non-engineering person monitor and evaluate effectively the engineering works of the division? And I mean, you're free to speak to those who were in the unit. And before any such move was made, we looked at reports, we look at the scope of work, we look at what they have been doing and not doing, and we felt that that's one of the areas that we needed to save some money. And there will be a few other similar units in time to come that you'll see where we will save some monies and do some restructuring, which we just have to do.
Right. So we heard firsthand what was said, and again, as we made a lot of the analogies about cricket, those who remember the days of Courtney Walsh, when he came into bat, even if West Indies had one run to make to win, people used to be fumbling, and we see the Chief Secretary fumbling like Courtney Walsh coming into the wicket. So guys,
well, the fumbling is really a symptom of lying. Because you see, that was very early in his tenure. And early on, he fumbled to lie. But within recent times, he's lying with a straight face. No fumbling, straight off the bat, lies. Now, interestingly, they promised before the election, because I said they promised their way into office several times. Nobody will lose their jobs when we get into office. We are prepared to work with everybody. He said it. There was a video clip of him on a barber's chair, right?
The bottle fall out.
When the bottle, that bottle falling was prophetic, right? So, after all those lies, first order of business, monitoring and evaluation unit gone, and talking absolute foolishness that engineers must monitor the work of engineers. I want to ask him a question. Is there now a monitoring and evaluation unit in that division comprising engineers? And I want to put it to the people of Tobago. When that $19 million project was going on, where they spent $19 million in 19 days, there was nobody going to that site on behalf of the division to monitor that project. Nobody. And I'm saying that without fear of contradiction, right? So absolute foolishness. In order to be a monitoring and evaluation officer, you do not have to be qualified as an engineer, right? In addition to that, you send home the monitoring and evaluation unit, and I'm leading now to the audit because I have a mark to bus concerning that audit. Well, the so-called audit. You sent home the monitoring and evaluation unit. You sent the engineer on suspension, you removed the administrator from the division, and then you brought in auditors to conduct an audit. I want to ask the Chief Secretary if the statements made in the House concerning the audit were truthful and if they were representative of any interim or draft report given to him. Because I'm prepared to say until he could prove otherwise that he lied to the people of Tobago concerning that audit. There is no audit report. All we have at this point in time is a statement read by the Chief Secretary, right? And the auditor has no idea where some of those information came from, right? As a matter of fact, some of the things said by the Chief Secretary cannot be verified at this point in time. You know why? As I said before, they sent home the monitoring and evaluation unit, sent home the engineer, sent home everybody who could provide information on the projects.
Yeah.
And therefore, how are you auditing? The auditors are now reaching out to all kinds of people trying to get information. So if they're now asking for invoices, if they're now asking for bills, if they're now asking for information concerning project, how did the Chief Secretary go to the House? What month was that?
September.
In September. And I'm going to provide proof of this later on. Right? How did the Chief Secretary go to the House in September to read information onto the Hansard, claiming that that information came from a report? Chief Secretary published the report. Tobagonians want to see it. Right? So the Chief Secretary once again lied to the people of Tobago. Very vicious, very malicious, and all of that, right? All of that was to pave the way for the little conspiracy to ensure that they were able to channel $300 million of Tobago people money to their friends in Trinidad. So if you have qualified Tobago contractors, you can't just bring in Trinidad contractors just like that. The people of Tobago will not accept that.
Exactly.
Yes. So therefore, you first have to destroy or find a way to disqualify the Tobago contractors. Audit and finish. No audit report, but you're running to read thing in the House. To put in the minds of the people of Tobago that our Tobago contractors are so corrupt.
Yes.
So you set them aside, and then you come just after that, no, it was before, to announce that you're doing 4 roads for Carnival and you're going to build the roads in a month. Who could build a road from Milford Court to Pigeon Point in a month? When the letter of award that they gave said the project duration is 120 days. But you're coming to tell Tobago people, the road important, we need it for Carnival. Or else ambulance wouldn't get to go down in Canaan if something happened down there. And people just get stuck in traffic when they go into Penny Savers. And people just get stuck in traffic and miss the flight to get to the airport. Where is the road that the Chief Secretary promised to be built from Milford Court to Pigeon Point in time for Carnival? No road. Right? So again, this is a conspiracy to channel the resources of Tobago to Trinidadian hands. And not just Trinidadian hands, South Trinidadian hands. And I want to give the people of Tobago the assurance that sometime in the month of January, I will be coming with documentary evidence to reveal this great conspiracy. They are too wicked. They are too, no, I'm serious. They are too malicious. They are too lied. And all the deeds that they made before the election, right? And even after the election, that they are trying to ensure that they put in place now, I am going to reveal all of it to the people of Tobago.
Minority Leader, you were going to say something.
No, well, it just further shows another D, which is they are very dishonest. And we are seeing that playing out day after day. You're seeing it in the questions. When we ask them questions, imagine you have a secretary so bold-faced that he would refuse when we sent in a written question to respond. And like if the money is being spent, it's his money. It is the same secretary that took $1.9 million of our money and then put some big stones out in the sea that we see washing away by the day, and didn't care to tell us who is the contractor. In fact, as we speak, that contract, although there is a main contractor, I asked him as a follow-up if there were anybody else involved, if there was any other contractor involved in the paving of that stage. And he knew why he didn't answer, but all that will be revealed in due time, because as the political leader said, it is time we unmask these fake. It is time we unmask them.
Another D is deceptive.
Yes.
Because as a minority, we have been saying, particularly when the Chief Secretary brought this preliminary audit report to the House, that it was quite irresponsible of him to bring such a report. Because you bring a report and there is no justification of the findings. There's no one there to answer any of the questions produced by the audit report. And if what the political leader of the Tobago Council is now saying is accurate and that he will provide evidence of such, this is a great, great, great deception.
Well, one of the challenge, and that is the thing, the Chief Secretary made some claims in the House, and he promised to provide the information.
Yes. He promised
and
to
up to
provide
this
the
day,
And there's a reason for that.
He promised to provide the appendices that he spoke to, the book pages.
You cannot provide information that
you don't
doesn't
have.
exist.
Yes. But and the thing about it is, I think this is a consistent action by this current Chief Secretary to speak things and say things exist that doesn't exist.
Exactly.
And we have a recent example in the House for this reallocation motion, because the Chief Secretary in the past, when he was on the side of the minority, indicated and he chided the former Secretary of Finance for when a reallocation budget comes to do a full estimate of the allocation that you now receive. He said in his presentation that he chided, so now he has something. To this date, the Chief Secretary has not presented the overall estimates that he said is available. So we had an entire debate in the House, and we had nothing
to debate. So what was debated?
His statement.
His statement. And
he said he insisted that he has it because he condemned the former administration.
But it's the same thing with the audit, you know. The presiding officer didn't even have a copy.
Yes, correct.
Remember the situation when he was reading from the so-called text, when he was reading from his phone. And claimed that he had it, and it took us 2 weeks to get the document.
I'm not going to ask when did we receive the statement that he claimed to have had, and we should have received the statement even while he is reading or shortly after the presentation.
So
we had to request the statement.
So what we're getting here in the first part of this discussion is that these people continue to say one thing before getting into office, and we would have highlighted a number of issues with respect to these contracts that I want us to just listen one clip. I'll ask Mr. Director to pull that up, because the gentleman in question, who I know, well, we can't finish dealing with infractions concerning him, but I want Tobago to listen to what this particular individual would have said before getting into office.
If you're in Tobago, you're not producing any construction material. Every piece of material that you purchase, whether it's from a Tobago hardware or not, is building an economy somewhere else. It's not multiplying here.
Right.
It's not multiplied from that spend, even if you purchase it through a Tobago hardware. It's just the markup they put on. And if you could calculate that as an economist would, when the worker spends that salary, when the businessman reinvests that part of that profit, the economist will tell you that the worker is going to spend on basic necessities first, food, housing, shelter, food, clothing, shelter. And all of that is being produced somewhere else as well. So the economy of Tobago don't benefit from that. When you have a foreign contractor, foreign in this sense, meaning non-Tobago contractor, then the labor, the money you pay in labor, benefits another economy as well. And if it were a non-Tobago contractor, then the management, the money you pay to manage the project, benefits somewhere else as well. So, and so you go along that line, and of course the profit is spirited away. So you end up spending $1 billion and the economy doesn't change in Tobago. And that to me is where the problem is. When you have a strategic intent, because by now that is what it is. It is not lack of capacity or anything like that. After 20 years, you can't argue that. When you have a strategic intent to procure construction services outside of Tobago, then your strategic intent is to build another territory, in this case, Trinidad.
What is amazing to me is that this man has not yet apologized to Tobago, you know.
Well, he don't think he has anything to apologize for. You need to, you know what arrogance is? He don't think he has anything to apologize for. So again, and these people are not even hiding the foolishness. So you promise, well, let me do say promise. But during that particular clip, he discussed the matter of monies leaving Trinidad, Tobago, and going back to Trinidad. And you gave Tobagonians the impression that when you get into office, your strategic intent will be, rather than develop an economy elsewhere, which is Trinidad, you will develop Tobago's economy. And the first set of projects, and this will be part of the conspiracy, but even before we get to projects, the first decision he made was to remove the established, dismantle the established procurement entities in that division. The procurement manager, who was reporting to the central procurement officer in the office of the chief secretary, totally sidelined. Brought in his own person on short term.
From where?
Brought in his own person on short term, and I wouldn't call names on this program, I wouldn't go down that road with individuals, but his own individual on short term to take responsibility for procurement. That individual, the reporting relationship to the central procurement officer was completely severed. So he dealt with procurement. His next decision after that was to establish a project management unit. And you know who he brought to manage that unit? A fella from Trinidad.
Which part in Trinidad?
What part of Trinidad this man from?
South Trinidad. So you brought somebody. So of the 60,000 people in Tobago, we could not find anybody qualified to manage projects. But that was on instruction. And when I go in January to talk about the conspiracy, I will tell the people of Tobago who gave the instruction for that to happen. So this individual was transferred or invited from South Trinidad to come to Tobago in the Division of Infrastructure to manage projects on behalf of the Division of Infrastructure, right? So first order of business, dismantle procurement, bring in your people. Second order of business, bring in somebody to manage projects, not a Tobagonian, but somebody from Trinidad. The next thing we heard, no announcement on who the contractors are or how much it was going to cost. The next thing we heard was roads to be built for Carnival in 1 month. And we're going to Soul Select, right? We revealed the information to the public. We talk about the 54 million, a contractor with 2 years experience, not building roads,
Roofing company.
Roofs and other construction. And the Secretary, Trevor James, have a way like to defend this contractor by telling Tobagonians, well, they must read the name of the business, the name of the contractor is innovative roofing and construction. Right? But still, no experience in building roads. But you end up in Tobago to build a road in one of the most environmentally sensitive areas in Tobago, $54 million. And guess what? A letter of award given before this contractor submitted a proposal. Just imagine. Now, even if you're sole selecting, you must get a proposal from the contractor. The contractor must tell you, I've looked at the job, this is my proposed cost, my methodology, and all those kinds of things concerning the project. And then based on that, you may negotiate, you may try to beat down the contractor a little bit, and then you say, all right, we agree to this, and you issue a letter of award. The contractor could now use that letter of award to start the project, go to the bank to get funding. But guess what? A letter of award first which points to collusion. Because clearly, this contractor was in discussions with other persons in the division concerned, and I'm not saying it's the secretary because I have no proof of that, but it could have been. So this contractor clearly was in discussions with other persons within the division concerning this project. So letter of award, you're getting the project, boy. You're getting your letter of award tomorrow.
One time.
Letter of award, all right, submit your proposal now. Right? And that is what is happening in Tobago. So again, let me reiterate, dismantle the procurement entity within the division and bring in your own person on short term. Bring somebody from South Trinidad to manage projects within the division. And between these individuals, you have a process that bypasses the Tobago contractors, who by that time were already, I wouldn't even say disqualified, but were already defamed. Right?
And remember,
defamed and damaged by the Chief Secretary's statement.
And just to add, remember as well, what they also did is also decided not to pay them even after confirming they would be paid by June, so that they also didn't have the financial wherewithal as well to participate, because
Correct.
bankrupt them.
Correct. So if you didn't pay them, only you promised to pay them, promised to pay them before the election,
Yes,
got into office, did not pay them.
Again, promised to pay them by another date.
And still didn't pay them. But you so want to make sure that you rule them out, because, I mean, you didn't pay them. You could possibly say, well, they wouldn't have money to do the project. So you could have taken a chance and say, give them, they have no money to do it. But you so want to ensure that you rule them out.
This audit.
Fake audit report.
Yeah.
Trying to damage these contractors, and then you clear the way. One roofing contractor, 2 years experience, none in road construction. During the pandemic period, registered in 2020, when the construction sector was severely depressed. So we're not sure what kind of experience this contractor have. The other one, 3 days. Day 1, letter of award. Day 2, what happened on day 2?
Day 2 was acceptance.
Acceptance. No, day 1 was proposal.
Right.
Yeah, day 1 was proposal. Yeah.
At least they got the order right. Yes. So day 1 proposal, by the next day, letter of award.
And mobilization.
And by the 3rd day, you're already into Tobago. Again, common sense should tell us that there was some collusion. The only way you get into Tobago in 2 days with your equipment and all ready to start that project, you're going encroaching on RC school compound without even seeking the permission, not even the courtesy of a discussion.
Dismantling the fence.
Right? Dismantling the fence. The only way that could happen is if that contractor was given some kind of assurance that you're getting this work even before that. Right? And that is what is taking place in Tobago. The blatant sellout of Tobago, the giving of projects that should remain in Tobago to Trinidad contractors, and I'm saying as well, it's for people's personal benefit.
Yes.
So we had quite a bit of discussion there in terms of the inefficiencies and the lies and so on with respect to the construction sector. We had some things happening in February into March thereabout, but let me also take the opportunity to remind the Tobago public that at the end of January, we had a retreat coming to the end of January, and we ended up with what I call the Rovanel's report, where 41 first quarter initiatives, and the Chief Secretary took his time to break the year up into quarters. He outlined 41 first quarter initiatives coming out of that report. And then sometime later on, we heard another mandate report coming out with another list of initiatives on the heels of these 41 initiatives, none of which were actually completed. So I want to remind Tobago that this administration continues to say they will do things that they don't ever deliver on. So we went into February after the minority leader would have come out with a scathing attack early in January about the COVID situation. and the ineffectiveness of the secretary to deal with it. And a lot was said and so on. And one of the things pointed out was that TRHA didn't have a CEO. And so we saw the installation of a CEO in February come up. But there was no board. I may not be versed in what the law says and the TRHA and the RHA Act and so on, but how can a CEO be installed in the absence of a board? So guys, I don't know which one of you want to swing at that.
Okay, it was very instructive because this is actually the motion that the minority brought at our last private members' day. The absence of the TRHA board and in keeping with the Regional Health Authorities Act. So the appointment of a CEO, and of course as a responsible minority, we would have sought some legal advice on the matter. And basically, the Act says, it states that the board shall appoint a CEO.
The board?
The board,
Okay.
the board. And at that time, and even until this current time, there has been no board. Because one of the first things that this administration sought to do was to dismantle, remove, inclusive of the Tobago Regional Health Authority Board. So there was no board at that time to engage in the recruitment of a CEO. So we see here the installation of a new CEO. We don't know under what authority this individual, the new CEO, was engaged and continues to be engaged. We also understand that the CEO is engaging and the TRHA is engaging in procurement, is engaging in a number of things, tendering, receiving, and purchasing goods and services. But what is the authority?
But how does that balance off in the absence of a board?
Well, what is interesting is that during the COVID, this said secretary posed as this health expert. And you would think that, now having the responsibility for health, she would be best positioned to treat with the issues of health. And when we recognize 5 months in, there was no announcement of a TRHA board. We asked her sometime in May, what is the situation with the TRHA board? When will the board be appointed? And she gave assurance that very soon.
She said specifically
yes.
in a couple of weeks.
Which a couple is two.
Yes.
Right? Lo and behold, we recognize June, July, August, September. There still was no announcement of a board. So we had to we sought legal advice. And that is where we recognize the seriousness of the situation, because in the absence of a board, then you are limited in what you can do. However, this TRHA has been operating as if they are alone to themselves. So you're seeing they're engaging in HR hiring that they require board approval. They're engaging in tendering where they require board approval. In fact, even some spending and the limitations, because the CEO has a certain limit, and you're hearing where they're saying they are going to the chief administrator, which the law is clear. There's a clear separation between the operations of the TRHA and the THA. And therefore, at this time, the TRHA is operating illegally. And at some point, this matter would be taken to the relevant authorities for them to have a say on the persons that continue to facilitate this illegal operation.
And I don't think that the Secretary of Health, as well as the Executive Council, understands the limited role that they have in terms of the function of the TRHA. Because even, again, we ask questions in the House. So we ask a question in the House in terms of the operation of
that's what the incinerator.
The incinerator, the operations of the incinerator. And she indicated that the incinerators were down, and they have engaged a company in the tune of millions of dollars to rent equipment to provide those services. She has also indicated that they have commenced a process to acquire a number of incinerators. And the follow-up question to the secretary was whether or not they have the authority to do that. So she has indicated that the Executive Council approved this thing, however, through the division, but the TRHA will fit the bill. Based on the quantum of the spend, the CEO does not have the authority to fit that bill. The administrator in the division doesn't have the authority to approve the bill, nor does the secretary, nor does the Executive Council. All of that is under the ambit of the Tobago Regional Health Authority Board, of which there is none at this current time.
So we continue to see
law breaking,
flagrant disregard of the law. And folks, we continuing through the year, because I know people are literally glued to the television and the Facebook Live. We saw a debacle in terms of payment of salaries coming to the end of February, where persons had not been paid for the year in the CPEP program. But one of the big ticket items that we saw coming out of February and heading into March, and I'm going to cue us up because we get into to the reopening of schools for the first time in April. I know the minority leader is very passionate about this particular secretary, so we're going to get to that.
The secretary. Passionate about education.
Education. But before we get there, we saw a trip take place that I think was the first signal that was given to Tobago in the clear intent of this, the former PDP administration. We saw a Dubai trip where a report was made to international investors that resembled that of a primary school child's project.
Blueprint.
The blueprint. And as you indicated that, I want to toss it. I don't know if you guys would want to say anything much on it. We have been experiencing quite a lot of dust in Scarborough since about mid-year, and the noise pollution, because the work that was started with the Scarborough redevelopment project that we are still not seeing, because it's a ghost project, that they had consultations on. We've not heard anything or seen anything about that manifesting, and the secretary has become very quiet about it, as well as the chief secretary.
Well, I'm hearing the secretary may not remain the secretary for long,
Like we have to extend this program tonight. We've not heard anything, and that was a major ticket item as well in the campaign. But the Dubai trip, we just want to have some comments in terms of that and how Tobagonians were fooled with that. And then we go right into the first opening of school for the year.
Yeah. Well, we have said that Watson Duke is ill-prepared for office, and he demonstrated that. But the real hypocrites are Farley, Augustine, and the rest of that team that associated with Watson Duke from 2015 up to the time that they got into office. So it was fine for them to defend Watson Duke on a rape charge. It was fine for them to defend Watson Duke. Farley himself defended Watson Duke when he was charged with sedition.
Yeah.
It was fine for them to defend Watson Duke when he referred to two Tobagonian beauties as stink and dirty. It was fine for them to defend Watson Duke with all kinds of atrocious statements made. They found ways to defend him. Right? They even celebrated Watson Duke as a hero. But now that they have achieved, in his case, his lifelong dream, and in the case of the others, the highest paying jobs some of them have gotten in their lives, they can now safely abandon the party, abandon the membership of the party, abandon everything that the party stood for, which they supported for a prolonged period of time. Throw all of that aside, because they now have power in the Tobago space. Right? I am no fan of Watson Duke, but God do like ugly. Right? So as I said, this was just another classic demonstration that Watson Duke has no place in the governance of Tobago or anywhere in the world, as a matter of fact.
So we continued from that point.
And let me add as well, does Tobagonians know that the Executive Council learned about that City of Roxborough project
In Dubai.
the same time
Everybody
that
else
the world did?
And before you move on, Mr. Moderator, even with the outcry of that presentation in Dubai, the public outcry from Tobagonians, this Chief Secretary and Executive Council also sought to defend this.
Exactly.
The Chief Secretary promised that on the return of the deputy at the time, a report will be produced and that they have investors lined up and some quantum of funds supposedly to come to this project. Again, the minority asked a question in the House about the reports. You know what the Chief Secretary, because by that time they would have fallen out, the Chief Secretary's response was that there was no report for Dubai and the minority should ask Mr. Duke.
And more than that, as we are on the topic of trips, you would recall that infamous trip of Vanilla and Friends to Labor Day, when the original arrangement was for a trip to Tobago Day. And even when we asked the questions to the Chief Secretary, he gave one of the most curious responses to the reason why they had to change, why they approved or facilitated the original approval when that wasn't available, when they weren't able to make that trip, and extended it to the Labor Day, and turn around to make it sound like if people are anti people from the East. So rather than treating with the issues of accounting for
always deflecting. But they must not escape, right? The House of Assembly is there for questions to be asked. You have the Freedom of Information Act, and we will reveal all these things to the people of Tobago, because I am saying to the people of Tobago that this group was given special treatment because of political affiliation. We all know who Vanilla Allen Toppin was, former TOP, and we know that they are one in the same. Not many groups will get that quantum of resources from the THA, especially in a context where you apply to travel to an event that takes place Tuesday, but you're leaving to now. That's not the exact day. I just use an example, which takes place Tuesday. Tuesday gone, but the Chief Secretary is prepared, as he said. I think he said that he amended the note, right, just for them to get to make a trip. So you missed Tobago Day. Now I could understand you sending a group to perform for Tobago Day. Right, but he then said to us that there were other events happening at the point in time, and you handed over $500,000 of Tobago people's money to that group, right? So all will be revealed. They must not escape.
So the year continued to roll, and we had a statement that was made famous by the Chief Secretary, newly minted Chief Secretary, in the end of March, where he referred to tourists as slave owners and descendants of rapists. And this was said in the House. This wasn't a statement made on the pavement or in James Park. This was said in the highest forum on the island.
Uncouth. Right, but let's be careful how we are revisiting that statement, because I will not want Tobago to suffer as a result of it, because it was a very unfortunate statement. Don't even play back the clip, right? And that is what we have in office today. An uncouth Chief Secretary who thinks he can say whatever he likes to anybody. Just recently, he was referring to a senior public servant that you don't even know what she's doing.
In the House, in the Senate House.
You don't even know what she's doing. But if he look at all his secretaries, including himself, he should conclude that all of them don't have a clue what they are doing, right? So it ties into the whole attitude towards public servants.
Seniors, remember
Yes, senior citizens, how we describe senior citizens, go home and mind baby.
Yes, that they must go home and mind grandbabies. Meanwhile, they are hiring seniors when it's convenient to them.
Exactly.
But that's another story. Right?
So we continued with him, and we saw the issue. And again, I'm highlighting things that were raised in the House even. And we saw the appointment of Dr. James to the spell board. And it was very interesting, the different excuses that we heard coming out of this. And it all ended with the Chief Secretary possibly removing Dr. James from the board. And I'm saying possibly because there are still some questions, I believe.
And this is after accusing the PNM about nepotism.
Nepotism.
Right? But you went a step further to appoint your own brother to a board. And then we saw these houses of secretaries. I think his wife
continuing
is on a board.
To date.
Somebody else's sibling on a board. But before that, they were accusing the PNM of nepotism. Right? And you go on there now and you're repeating the same thing. And I think Winford James' response, he had the audacity in responding to talk about what the PNM did. Right? A man who was selling himself to the people of this country as an independent political analyst.
Neutral.
And for a neutral political analyst, how could you find yourself being appointed to a political position? Does that explain the silence, the deafening silence, from a man who considers himself to be a leading political analyst on the present debacle that is facing the Tobago House of Assembly?
Well, after I get $25,000
to write a speech,
to edit.
Oh, you didn't write it?
No,
he didn't write it. It was to edit.
And I still wondering, he had to give back some change because when you listen to that presentation.
Well, you have to, you may have to excuse him, because this Chief Secretary has a habit of reading things that doesn't necessarily exist.
So we continued, and what was mentioned earlier, we saw on the 31st of March, the end of March, the Community Partnership Unit being sent home. The political hiring of the political hires hunt continued. But now that we've passed that stage, we went into, after 2 years, where we had the impact of COVID and the restrictions, and more importantly, schools were shut down. We had the online learning. And this administration came into office on the 6th of December. And we had a number of months where everybody knew, down to the children, that school was going to be reopened. By
everybody except the Secretary.
We had a public disaster of schools reopening for that first term. And I know Minority Leader and the Secretary of Education had a number of exchanges on this particular issue. And to date, we still don't even know what went wrong.
Maybe if he took my advice, then he wouldn't have ended up with that mess in September where you have, for the first time, students from our major secondary schools could not enter schools for over weeks. In some instances, we had Scarborough sick children going on a rotation in a school environment that was most dangerous. You know, even now the school is incomplete and not fit to accommodate students at this time.
And it's the high level of irresponsibility. Because you came, you should have known the school was not ready.
Yeah.
But you came to announce that all schools will be open on that particular Monday. Then when you realize water more than flour, she came and she said Scarborough Sick will open, I think was the following week or something like that. You know, they still opened that school and put children in that school with leaking roof and all kinds of safety hazards on the school compound. Till students started creating TikTok videos showing the condition of the school. And then after that now, you're looking for facilities all over the place to accommodate the schools. They are not proper managers. If you was a proper manager, in the first place, the school repair program should not have started that late.
Yeah.
Right? You cannot expect to start a school repair program a week before school opens and do it successfully. Two things are going to happen. The projects will either not be completed, or the contractors will rush the work, no fault of their own, and give shoddy work. And I am sure in many instances that happens. And you can't blame the contractor. Because if you hand me a contract and tell me you want me to deliver the school in time for Monday, I take in night and make day,
to get the job
I
done.
take in stone and make bread in order to get the job done. And I may take screws and make nails as well.
but political leader, that could be the case in April.
Yes.
But in September,
But
I
this
think
was
the
a
delay
second
was
chance.
different.
This was a second chance because remember when
Exactly.
school reopened, was about to reopen.
Yeah, because
for
September I'm
COVID.
talking about.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So-
there was the issue with furniture. A number of schools could not be open because there was no furniture.
Yeah.
We saw where there was the impasse between the Pentecostal Light and Life and the division, the call for the audit. You saw a number of things. Even while that was happening, or before school reopened, the secretary gave the commitment that all was well. Everything was in order.
Yes.
All the furniture was acquired. Everything was in place for the reopening post-COVID.
Yeah.
We saw that that did not happen. Fast forward to September, where tutor representative came and outlined a number of issues. The work's not starting late. He would have reached out to the division to have some consultations. That did not happen. And we see all that would have transpired. I keep saying in my mind chief secretary, but it's probably prophetic. The political leader.
Once a chief, always a chief. A guy told me that he met me in the airport and he said, "Chief." I said, "Say former chief." He said to me, "Once a chief, always a chief."
But the reason I raised that is because as we knew the delay and the different excuses we heard in April, but we saw another delay that resulted in two things happening. One, there was a $20 million allocation for school repairs.
The creation of emergency.
And then we saw closer to the school term opening, the secretary herself said she had to go back to the executive council for emergency funding, which was to the tune of 22 million.
Again, they sold themselves as effective managers during the campaign, that they could manage this island and manage the divisions way better than the PNM was doing. And when they got there, they do not know their elbow from their feet. Right? If she was a proper manager, then she would have gone to the executive council with a comprehensive note approving the entire project. Even if you want to do it in phases, you get the approval for the entire, because you don't want to keep running to the executive council. An executive council note supposed to take 2 weeks for approval. They don't know what they're doing, so they're probably doing it in 1 week. We don't know. But it's supposed to take 2 weeks. You take the note 1 week, you get it approved, and then it goes back for confirmation.
Yes.
Right? So you approve 20 million, and then suddenly you realize you have $41 million in work to be done. And you allow the timeline to go all the way down to 2 weeks before the program. And then on top of that, you want to blame public servants. When Farley was saying, Faith said it as well in her Facebook.
Yes.
Somebody else said it, Don't blame the public servants. So all of a sudden,
blame the liar politicians.
Yes. All of us was talking about yourself. All of a sudden, you get into office, and everything that goes wrong is the public servants'
And
fault.
all that goes right.
Is
You
their
do, yes,
responsibility.
yes.
And I would say to the people of Tobago again, you have never seen that under the PNM. No PNM politician ever went into the public domain and blamed any public servant. That was actually, when I was part of the team under Mr. London, that was not allowed. You simply could not go and blame public servants. As a secretary of a division, as Farley put it to us some time ago, you have general direction and control of that division, and therefore the buck stops with you.
Yes.
And even if you're not directly responsible for a particular course of action, you have, as a leader, the responsibility to take responsibility for anything that happens within that division. I was saying if it goes wrong, find ways to fix it. You don't come and throw public servants under the bus.
Yeah.
Folks, I mean, we should have treated a 3-hour program, I feel, but before we wrap up, I want us to deal with the final big ticket item that we'll treat with tonight. We saw CPEP coming under heavy fire, and I think we're in the same spirit here, where we saying the same thing. I'll ask the director to just run that clip quickly for us, and so we'll use that in our closing discussion.
So the video clip and the voice note.
Oh.
So, they're not treating.
Go ahead with that one, director.
I want to also say further that we started the restructuring process, and we did say that we have scaled down some of those positions at the upper echelons from 38 to now 24. And these officers will receive correspondence to that effect as to what is taking place. We also said that in the new positions that these officers and anybody that is eligible can apply for, for new positions in the new structure. Okay, we said that I was also not instructed, but what's the word what I should use here? Encouraged. In fact, the Chief Secretary made a commitment, let me put it that way, made a commitment that those persons who may not find themselves in the new positions, that across the THA, where the skill set may be required and where there are places that they can find employment, that we will do our best to make sure that they are fitted in those areas. Okay, so I am very happy that this is what is happening in the workforce, particularly in CPEP and URP, because we know what worker morale was like. We know how these workers have been mistreated and how they have been abused and used for political purposes in the past and so on. We want to change that. We want to change that once and for all. We want the workers to be treated properly. We want them to be treated as human beings and so on. And so we want to set up this framework. And so I am very happy that we're able to do this work. So that the next time you see me, hopefully, we should be talking about an approved framework to treat with, especially those 4 areas that Mr. Sampson just outlined as it relates to the benefits of the worker. I thank you.
Okay, good morning. It's another good morning for me. Thank God I'm alive. Thank God for good health and strength and everything else that God has blessed me with today. It has been really rough. It is really rough. I've never actually not been able to not have a job or not working. Ever since I have been working, it has been, ever since getting that termination letter, the 1st of July, no work, no nothing, no next job. Things have been really tough. Jobs in Tobago has been really harsh. People call for interviews, you do interviews, and the next day don't call. But since then, no money for food, no money for bills. You think you have some friends or some so-called friends. They say talk to them after you help them for so much time, so much things you do for them, and you think you have the support to make go back to them to help. They don't help you, they can't help you. So you feel all alone. You have overheads to pay, you have bills to pay, you have insurances to pay, you have different things. But right now I'm studying and nothing has been happening. Tuition fees to pay, no money to get anything anywhere. Only at this age, have to depend on your brother, your mother, your father, your sister, everybody just to get stuff, just to get things to eat. Basic utilities is almost just last week. TNT came wanting to cut the bills. They wanted to cut the lights, had to beg, had to talk, had to do all this. And it has been really, really painstakingly hard, really difficult. How we were terminated was really raw and callous and heartrending. It was not nice. It was really, really not nice. You understand? And thank God that you could pray for everything else that happened. Pray for God to give you strength for another day until it lasts. You know? Just you go, you do interviews. They call you back for interviews and it just promises. It's really, 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 really tough. Words can't even describe how it is. You know, we're just hoping that everything finishes soon and, you know, you get some kind of job or blessing as soon as, because trust me, this is beyond hard, really beyond hard.
So we're going to close this evening with this particular discussion, and we know this was a real big ticket item because the victimization and the deception to Tobago continued, and I don't want to even go into the individual and his claim, but we saw, I mean, I think this was the worst that we saw for the year, where people were blatantly disrespected, they were ripped from their jobs. They were thrown into situations where even in terms of their households, they couldn't provide the basic needs for their children. And when you look at the callous behavior of this secretary, who claims to be so much more.
Pastor.
Let me pass the baton on here before I...
So I hope the viewers were able to hear the audio properly. Of course, for two reasons, we had to blur the image of the video and also distort the voice to protect the person's identity, to protect them, of course, from the possibility of future victimization, and also to protect their dignity, because nobody wants to be identified as somebody that once had things together, able to pay their bills, able to live comfortably, and suddenly TNT is showing up to cut electricity from their home. They have to depend on family members for support and help and that kind of thing. This administration has thrown close to 200 persons, or it might be 250 persons, into similar circumstances. People who were diligent workers in the THA in most instances, people who were there for many years. There is one lady who worked in the assembly for 20 years, another one for 15 years, both of them in their 50s, not even 60, 155, 154, unceremoniously removed from their jobs. One under the guise of restructuring, the other under the guise of a name change of the division. Moved from their jobs, right? Several young persons, qualified young persons, with degrees next to their name, properly qualified for their jobs, removed from their jobs unceremoniously by this wicked and vindictive administration. And on top of that, to fool the people of Tobago into accepting this wicked act, you know what they said? That they will rehire the persons, right? They will ask them to submit applications. Some might be rehired, and all those who are not rehired by CPEP will be given opportunities in other divisions. Guess what?
Not singing.
Today.
Still waiting.
Salt.
Salt. So, again, it has been, and this will be my final comment, it has been a year of distress, a year of scandal, bacchanal, kankatang, corruption, collusion, lies, dishonesty, disingenuousness from the leader of the team himself, that has been the experience of Tobagonians. And I will say, without fear of contradiction, it has been the worst first year of any chief secretary and of any administration in the history of the Tobago House of Assembly.
Yeah.
And finally, I will say to the people of Tobago, in case you're thinking that it cannot get any worse than this, because of the recent developments where they are now functioning as defectors or Nowhereans. I want to look into the camera when I'm saying this. Which camera I could look at?
Straight ahead.
Straight ahead. It will get worse than this. Good evening to everyone.
Minority Councillor, I want to leave the minority leader for last in this case. Closing remarks.
I think we have had a year of pain, feeling the pain. The people have felt the pain. A year of chaos and confusion. You know, there's this saying that when the PNM is not in office, you have chaos and confusion. I think we have seen that from day one. Day one of the swearing in of this administration or Nowhereans now into office. Because we saw where it took the minority leader and even the Attorney General then to call out the Chief Secretary, because at that time the Deputy Chief Secretary was holding the position of President of the PSA while holding the position of Deputy Chief Secretary in the Tobago House of Assembly. So from the get-go, it started with chaos and confusion. And it's not only until there was public pressure being born on the Chief Secretary, because he started off by saying that there is nothing wrong. The then Deputy Chief Secretary was forced to resign. And it just got worse from then to now, where you see all of them deciding to become
defectors
and Nowhereans. 2 weeks ago, we were at our office, and a young lady came in, and the pain was so real, she could not keep back her tears. She felt like there was no hope because she was coming from the office of the Chief Secretary and she couldn't see him after an appointment was made. And after sitting there waiting for more than an hour, she was told that she couldn't see anybody. Her next turn was to the minority. And when she came and she explained her story, she was literally in tears. And when we asked her, how can we help you? She said, all I want you to do is to remind this administration that they were put there to serve the people.
Correct.
And people looking like her, people at the bottom of the barrel, people at the top, they were there to serve everybody, even the people wearing the red t-shirts. Because we are people, resident Tobagonians of this island, and we ought to benefit from the resources of this island. So this administration, these Nowhereans need to stop governing with hate and spite, because we have seen the rewards of that. And if it continues, all of us will be a part of the whirlwind to be reaped. Please be guided.
And as on that note, I mean, for me, it has been total disaster this last year. A total disaster. Feels like a bad dream, a nightmare. And it gets even worse when you have to deal with human tears, real tears of persons calling you, crying that they went to a division to get some assistance, a division that they would have accustomed getting help. And they now can't get that help. When they're trying to see the secretary doesn't want to see them.
Ease me up.
When the secretary, they're calling their phones and they're telling them, they're turning off their phones, they're telling them, ease them up. In fact, now they are working from 8 to 4 like public servants
Monday
and
to
not
Friday.
servants of the people. Monday to Friday, and then they lock off during the weekend.
Yeah.
So if you have an emergency, if you have some kind of need,
ease them up.
Ease me up. And the reality is that people are really genuinely feeling the pain. Tobagonians are crying out. And it behoves me that these people are so ignorant to what is really going on the ground. It seems like they're really up in the clouds and the rest of us are on the ground and they just don't seem to care because things are so nice. They are flying high, riding in the sky.
And they're getting social media likes.
And they're getting some social media likes. But while that is happening, the average Tobagonian, we saw a Calypsonian crying for his money, while others outside of Tobago were paid and handsomely so. The little pittance for the Tobagonians, they can get 17.5 million spent on Carnival, but how many were really, how many of that 17.5 million directly benefited Tobagonians? We saw over $300 million in Tobago development money simply gifted back to financiers in Trinidad. This has been a year of distress for the contractors, for workers, for people who depend on the social safety net of the social protection unit. For public servants who are now under attack. We are seeing administrators being publicly attacked.
Talking for cover.
Even in the house, you're seeing the disrespect. Not only for the minority, but you're seeing the disrespect for the public servants in the house and the presiding officer. And this, for me, is one that it requires us all as Tobagonians to say enough is enough, and we are going to push back. We are going to hold these people accountable because we cannot allow them to continue to trample over each and every one of us.
Thank you very much, Minority Leader. And I want to take the opportunity to thank all members of the panels that contributed tonight. Political Leader, Senator Lawrence Hislop, Party Chairman, Mr. Larry Paul, and obviously Minority Leader and Minority Councillor who consistently feature. And folks, you've heard the comments, you've heard the discussions, and let me say very soon you will be privy to what may be called the Book of Sins that would be released out of the minority. And the panelists are laughing. But it's a very serious thing because I can say to you clearly that we have not scratched the surface.
We run out of time.
We've run out of time. We've not scratched the surface of the number of infractions. And in the very action of the Chief Secretary who like to read things that not there, this have all the information for the Book of Sins to be published. So we encourage you to look forward to that so you can have a first-hand view of all the things that this administration have done. And while that is coming out, as the political leader indicated, he have marked a bus. So January is also going to be a very tumultuous season for this administration of defectors. So folks, thank you for viewing. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you for encouraging us. And we continue to firstly revere and relish your prayerful support. I can speak on behalf of everyone at the table and who would have participated that this is not an easy task, not just physically, but spiritually as well. And I know all of us can attest to a number of incidences, strange occurrences, every time you attempt to do the work that the people have put you there for. But with God's guidance and His help, and we continue to even pray at the minority office before every major event and function, with God's help, that He will continue to strengthen us to continue walking this road. So without further ado, we want to say, stay tuned, because next week we are back. Next week we are back to continue executing the mandate through the Minority Report. I'm Marlon David, and I want to say thanks for being with us this evening, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of your night. Stay blessed. Have a good evening.